Today I'd like to talk to you about a very important topic that most of us tend to overlook, and it has to do with the fragrance of life and the sweet smell that life often brings. And before I get into that topic, I want to just go through the passages with you very quickly. Most of you are familiar with the words of Isaiah. What is being said in this passage is simply this: the days of the Sea of Reeds, the death of the Egyptian army as they flee captivity, is now past. God now wants to do something new and wonderful for the people of Israel who were brought in from captivity from their original homes in Judah to Babylon to now begin their long journey back to rebuild their society in the world from which they have derived most meaning and purpose. But you have to remember that the audience that's listening to these particular words at that time are also people who have not been born in Judea. They are the children of those who were led into captivity. Now, this sense of captivity has to be clarified. They weren't put into prison. They weren't put in to be slaves. They were just told to come and live amongst the people. Many of them used their talents and their gifts and became quite wealthy with the life that they had made in Babylon. Not all of them were made into slaves. And indeed, they derived a comfortable life. But what's most important here for all of you to understand is that now they're being told they have to return, because Cyrus has said they may go back. And they're stalling because they're stuck in their routine of life. In Philippians, Paul is under house arrest, and what he is basically saying to his congregation in Philippi is that now we have something much more important. We have, in and through the faith of Jesus, the righteousness of God. The trust that Jesus brought to God becomes our trust that opens compassion to me and to others. We're having a problem.
It's all good.
I will carry on. In the Gospel of John, one of the things that you need to see in this story, and there's many things that you need to see, this particular ointment is normally reserved for burial. And Mary and Martha are actually disciples of Jesus. And Jesus is living in Bethany because he's using his operation from their home to spread his word throughout Jerusalem. And he's been spending a long time with this particular family because they've been quite supportive of him. And as you know the story of Lazarus, he too, raised from the dead, is sitting with Jesus at a table when Mary comes with this ointment, and she just feels moved to pour it on his feet. She wipes it with her hair. And Judas looks at this and says, what a waste. We could get good money for that perfume. We could be able to take that money and give it to the poor. Now the scripture hints, and we don't know this for sure, but that Judas had been pilfering the till because he was responsible for the finances of the 12 disciples. Be that as it may, it doesn't really matter, but the point is that for Judas, what she's doing is unconscionable, because there are those who could use the money and the support from that perfume, and that perfume would take a whole year's wage to purchase. But Jesus discounts it, says you'll have the poor always, but you won't always have me. And the hint in that story is that Jesus is saying she wants to show her love before I die. I won't be here. And he desperately needs to know that what he begins in his life has meaning and purpose and is supported by someone who really cares about him. All right, the fragrance of life. And one of the first things that we have to understand about the fragrance of life is that the sweet smell of life happens when having to let go. And let me give you a simple case in point. Most people are caught in a routine. All of us have a job. We're married, perhaps raising children. Some of us are doing the things that we do. Some of us are retired and traveling and enjoying life, enjoying our grandchildren. And life is a routine. We go to their hockey games. We go to their soccer games. We run here and there. We have to pick up the groceries. We have to go to the bank. We have to make sure the bills are paid. All of us live a life of routine. And the early Hebrew people who were born in Babylon also had a routine. And they're being suddenly told to change their routine, to leave the familiar for the unfamiliar, which their parents told them long ago was the place from whence they came. Part of life, if you want to smell its rich fragrance, is you have to let go. And you have to be able to venture into new territory. Life is not stagnant, life is not predictable, and life has many challenges. And all of us are called to change in order that we might become. That's the destiny of our spiritual life. If we stay in our routine, we will never know what we could be or have become. We will never know what our life really meant. Life isn't just living up to the expectations that society demands of us. It's also about finding out who you are and where you should go in order that you might become. Part of the experience of knowing how rich life is to let go of what you've had, what you've known, what you've experienced, and to venture forth into something very different. And again, I'll give you a simple case in point. I had been in Redwater 16 years, and the mayor of the town came to me one day and he said, "Have you thought about running for town council?" I said, "No, wasn't interested. I have too much to do." And he said, "That's too bad. We could use a man like you." Then I had some people, business people, people that I've known in my congregation who often said, "You should run." And for a long time, I've always wanted to know what it was like to be in some capacity as a politician, even if it's only town council. And to my amazing chagrin, on my first election, I was third from the top in terms of total votes. And in the next year, I won by acclamation. I did well. I learned a lot. I learned about municipal government. I learned about our responsibilities as a society. And I began to realize also the pressure of having to speak on behalf of your whole community as to the direction it should take or not take. And also the political criticism that will often follow you. But something happened. I got the taste of what it could be like. I learned about the exercise of power, of having people's confidences given to me about other problems, such as they don't have hydro to their home, how come? Or why are they tearing this street apart when it was just put in a year ago? Simple things that people wanted to know. People wanted also to recycle their garbage, wanting to know what we could do about it. And I supported one of my colleagues as he brought in a massive new transition in terms of our garbage and its treatment. I learned, I grew, and I discovered that there's more to life than just what I do. And there's a whole world waiting for me, should I ever case to take a chance upon it. But in order to know that, you have to let go. And it was unfamiliar territory to me. But I had one woman who was very good to me, and she said, "I'll drive you around town. I'll help you deliver your pamphlets." She was excellent. A wonderful, wonderful lady who later died of cancer. But she believed in me so much that she took her time to drive me around so I could go door to door and give people a pamphlet. I discovered a friend. Someone who saw in me something that I didn't see in myself. In order to know these things, you can't remain stuck in routine. The way of all spiritual growth is to let the old die and give way always to the new, even when we lose people we love in death. Number 2, the sweet smell of life also radiates its rich odour when we cradle ourselves in the trust of God. I don't know about you, but my experience has been that I've met many people of great faith. I've also met lots of people who have no faith. And one of the things that I've often been called upon as a minister is to visit those who have no faith. I don't know why I get the call, but I get the call. Where other ministers tend to stick to their own or to people of tremendous faith. But I want to share something with you. Those people who have no faith often die the hardest, often take a longer time to succumb to their death. Where people of faith, I have found that they have had the prayers of loved ones, including that of their minister and other people in their congregation, who have been supported and loved by their families, who have been told the meaning of their life, and as a result to all of that, they have discovered something unique. And that they have discovered is that faith has helped them to cross that heavy, heavy road into death with peace, with tranquility, without struggling. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that people who don't have faith don't somehow die peacefully. Many do. But my point to you is people who are able to hold that faith, as Paul talks about, and not about life's accomplishments, but about what it means to be who you are in this world as a gift for others, and how you have been embraced to be that profound gift for others. It is that which helps you to release, to let go, to explore whatever awaits you when your life is finally over. And finally, the fragrance of life is discovered by the sweet smell of life that is blanketed by the odious odor of death and despair. What do I mean? Every time you extend compassion to a world that knows no compassion, you give people fresh air to breathe. Every time you take your abundance and share it with a world that knows only scarce resources, people are lifted with hope in their despair, and they can breathe much better. In your generosity that you extend to somebody who has no generosity at all, and to a world that often shuts down with limited resources, it is there that you begin to build new hope for the eventual world. What I'm saying is, it is your faith that blankets the terrible stench of death and despair, because what you bring is hope, encouragement, decisiveness, friendship, gentleness, and your ever constant watch over their demise. It is in faith, in keeping trust, not only with God, but with the people you love and who love you, that death is blanketed and made so beautiful in its transition. Again, one last example very quickly. We've celebrated the annual anniversary of the Broncos, and there are some of us who feel that it's been drenched over in the news so many times, it's time to remain quiet, to forget about it, to put it back into the history books. But those families who are grieving and who are still searching for the meaning of what happened to their child are cradled by the fact that many people care about what happened, who have taken the opportunity to have an annual anniversary to remember their loved ones. They feel nurtured and supported. They feel they can breathe again. And as one parent said, as difficult as it has been, and she started to cry, she held her tears back for a moment and she said, I am so glad for the support that I have felt from the people of Humboldt, and for the people around the world, and people who have written me letters expressing their deep care for me in the loss of my son. That's the perfume that quenches the stench of Judas, of betrayal, of death and despair. And that is where you find the fragrance of life. Amen.